Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd join us, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, I'd like to welcome our board member that has moved from alternate to member, Roseanne Wicks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Raise your hand. I'd also like to talk about the minutes. I think they came out a little bit late because there were so many comments for Michelle to record. So I think, personally, I haven't had enough time to review them. And if everyone agrees, we could just table that and review them and get our comments into Michelle over the next week or something.
Sure.
Can I have a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion.
Second? Oh, you got, Michelle would like everyone to say their name when they talk, please. Sorry, new rule.
Okay, Chris Greer, I'll make a motion.
Who seconded?
Sandy Brake.
Sandy. Thank you. And then we have other little business. The zoning board was looking for a liaison, and Andrew has graciously accepted to do that. Thank you, Andrew. And we are still looking for a liaison to the Architectural Review Board. So I would like, if anybody has architectural background, color background, historic preservation background, and would be willing to do that. They meet once a month on...
First Monday.
What is it?
The first Monday.
First Monday, thank you. Appreciate that. If anybody would be interested, you can email me, would be fine. You don't have to let me know right now. And if nobody will do it, I'll do it. But I think it'd be good if we had somebody that had some experience in those areas, because it is purely reviewing building facades, looking at the overlay districts, codes, that kind of thing, colors. Okay? All right, from there, I'm going to jump to old business, which is Bronze Foundry Lofts. We're on our third name now. They're getting better though.
You like that one more?
I do.
All right.
I'm not sure about the lofts part, but
Well,
Bronze Foundry is definitely better.
Steve Brightska from EDR. Michelle? How would you like me to do this, Terry? Do you want me to go through the plan here and you can see it?
We have smaller plans. I'm wondering if you should hold it up
Okay.
or something. You guys see from the small ones, okay?
You see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We should have taped it to the TV.
Okay, so good to see everyone again. Thanks for having us back for another concept review here of Bronze Foundry Lofts. So we've changed the name from Baldwin Center. Following our last meeting, we discussed the previous plan from 2013-2014. And we utilized that as a starting point to look at a different type of design, a different infrastructure across the site, and focused on the other items that were raised by the board. The cut-through concern, the parking, the building height, the building orientation, the general layout of the site in terms of walkability and how people would access their individual building. So we put all of that together and came up with a plan that we were attempting to address all of those concerns. So looking at it from both entry points, Salina Street or Genesee Street, if you're entering along a tree-lined street, that's similar to the way the previous design was working. But now when you enter, the buildings are oriented perpendicular to each other. That brings them closer to the street. So that's driving more of that village aesthetic. You don't have the on-street parking as a buffer in front of your building. So whether you're coming from Salina or Genesee Street, you're passing by buildings that are closer to the street. You're meeting an intersection that's forcing you to turn, it's forcing you to slow down. It brings you into the core of the site where we have a street infrastructure that still forces people to slow down, where we have multiple pedestrian crossings. We increase the amount of walkability across the entire site with sidewalks on all of the streets. And that really brings that pedestrian level, that scale, to the circulation throughout the entire site. So when you get into the center then, that's changed as well. We've brought the clubhouse off of Salina Street where we had it on the commercial development pad originally, utilizing an existing building to the middle of the site. And that is intended to activate that core. So we have a village green now to the north, the east of that clubhouse. And then our stormwater management is reserved in the low portion of the site from a topography standpoint to complete that green corridor through the middle. So those were some attempts to focus on the circulation and the infrastructure. From a building standpoint, we still have our two footprints, one large and one small, but we've reduced them all to 3 stories. So we no longer have 3 and 4-story buildings, they're all 3-story. They have 42 units in the larger. We have 3 of those and 36 units in the smaller buildings. That gives us a total unit count of 270, so that has come down from the previous design. For the parking that's split 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, 135 for each of those. The parking then is divided up now. We don't have just rows of head-in parking the way we did from the original design. It's broken up more building by building. There are some lots that would be shared between buildings, but we're looking at a total count of 443, and that's split between 4 garage spaces that we have. You can see those as part of the parking lot infrastructure. Then there is parking lot parking for each of the buildings. And then there is limited on-site or on-street parking as well, parallel parking. Again, to bring some of the village aesthetic in to our site. So 270 units, 443 spaces, that gives us a ratio right now of 1.64, which is, it's not 2, but it's higher than 1.5, which we're finding is about the average based on a few studies that we're researching. That's about the sweet spot in terms of apartment style parking ratios. It is all off of that main road for the parking lots, so we don't have cars backing into the main roads through the way we had on the original plan. From a landscape perspective, we're still planning on a dense buffer along that east edge along the Curtis Ave property line. We have a 50-foot offset there that would be vegetated. Then we would have our garage, 2 garages on either corner of the site, and then parking before we would get to the building there. So we are looking at the landscape side of things to elevate the streetscape, make it more pedestrian friendly across the entire site. Let's see, the commercial space expansion, you can see we're still showing just as a land use on the site. We have not designed those pieces based on a particular tenant yet. That will come once we get to a point where we're all comfortable with the direction that this is headed. And the same goes for the architecture. We haven't submitted new architectural drawings because we wanted to review this with you, discuss the layout. That can be a next step as well, where we'll look at the 3-story buildings, the different articulation for the facades of those, and then the material selections as well. I think those were the highlights. We did talk about added amenities, and that was really the point of having that central green space, not only to break up some of the density, but to provide that central gathering space for people. And with the clubhouse right there, it really activates that whole area. It can be a playground, just a park space. There's a number of different opportunities within that area. The clubhouse is shown at 5,000 square feet, just for point of reference. That gives you a sense of how big that green space is, about a quarter of an acre to the east of it. that takes us through the highlights that we were focusing on from our last meeting. Be happy to answer questions and talk through it in more detail. Yeah.
So Steve, you also moved the entrance east on Genesee Street, is that right?
Yes, and that's because we have that 42-unit building in order to make that work in that space. Yes, so that did shift east.
I think that's better.
Yeah.
I had some concerns about the shared driveway with Beeville Supply and that I know they can't make that corner. And I actually had a chance to talk to them and they're like, no, we can't make that corner.
Okay.
You know, because they have a 55-foot tractor trailers with sleepers that come in there.
Okay.
So I think that's definitely an improvement and works with what they need as well. Anybody have any comments right now? Questions?
You answered, well, your question kind of answered one of mine, which is I
Okay.
didn't see the
Chris-
access road in.
Chris is
Oh, sorry,
speaking.
Chris.
I'm
speaking.
trying, sorry.
So that was one of my questions because I didn't see that access road, but I didn't catch that the
Yeah, it's
entry
moved
shifted up
east.
east a little bit. Just a question in terms of some of the parking, the on-street parking. When I first kind of looked at this, I was trying to determine where on this overview is that laid out. But
That's the question.
if I'm
It's-
catching this correctly, is it all the 3s and 4s that are
Yes.
adjacent to the buildings? Okay.
It is.
And that would be just like typical street back in parallel
Just
park
typical
parking.
parallel
Okay.
parking, right? So it's pulled off of the street, there's a bump out for it.
Okay.
Yep.
Actually, this is Andrew. I appreciate the trash enclosures. Just being mindful of easy access for them, that it does not congest or create like a lengthy time where they're pulling trash out. And again, I don't think anyone in their right mind wants to drive through this to get to the other side as a cut through. So that's, again, my hat's off and thank you for addressing that especially.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I just have a comment, Sandy, right, on the parking. So, combining the numbers for the surface lot and the garage, it's assumed that people will need to use the garage really to make the parking work. I mean, that's an assumption, so, available, but I'm assuming there'd be a cost for that. So, when I was looking at really the entrances each way, I see the on-street parking likely have to be used because by each 3-story building, you've got 36 units and 23 spots. So it's hopeful that people will use the garage parking so there's enough parking. I'm just trying to make sure that's the assumption here, right?
Right,
Yeah,
it is,
okay.
yep.
Because I'm just thinking more of safety, because otherwise, for the example, the 3-story buildings at each of the entrances, you'd have to, if you can't use one of the 23 spots or the 3s, we could be walking a little bit to get to our building.
Right.
So I just want to make sure there's enough parking in those areas. It just seemed a little bit thin, but the numbers work. It's just somebody may have to walk a little farther.
Right.
Just in those 2 areas.
Sure.
That was my quick look at those. So,
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
But again, trying to make it walkable,
Yeah.
street lights, street trees,
Yeah.
and more of a village
Yeah.
atmosphere.
I just, again, assuming they're going to use the garage parking, you'll be
Sure.
okay. It's just in those 2 areas, it's a little lighter, and they might have to walk a little farther to get to their building,
Right.
so.
Okay. So my positive comments were moving the clubhouse and making the green space interior. It seems more like a community, more like a village. Kudos to working those roads to make them more village-like. Moving the entrance to the east on Genesee Street is positive, and internalizing the parking away from Curtis Ave and away from Salina Street is also a great positive. I'm seeing lots of landscaping, which makes me very happy.
Yeah.
And I also like the walking connection through the site, and I think personally think this eliminates the cut-through issue that we were also concerned about.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything to say? Sure.
Kevin Hamilton.
Kevin?
Kevin Hamilton. The numbers on here, the 50s, the 110s, those are from the backyards of the people, is that?
From the property line.
Property
From the
lines, okay.
property lines.
Property line to the
To the
garage, for
garages.
instance.
So
and
that's
then-
property line back here,
Yeah.
the start of that black line?
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so as you can see, with moving them, turning the buildings and moving them west on the site allows us to be a lot further away from Curtis Ave,
Yeah, gotcha.
which is positive.
And is that pedestrian connection, that's a right of way there, or is that?
No, they own that.
That you
lot.
own just that lot?
Sorry,
Yes,
I
There,
didn't
okay.
speak for
Right,
them.
yeah.
Yeah. And I like the meandering path, Steve, that's
That's
very
nice.
nice.
That is very nice. I agree.
Couple benches.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a nice connection.
Yeah.
Now, one thing to note is that it does not, Curtis Ave does not have a sidewalk
Yes.
on that street, on that side of the street.
Yes, it's on the other side.
It is on the other side, so we need to consider that where we're taking people and how they're
Might
getting
need a
across. Curtis.
painted crosswalk or
Right.
something.
Right.
Okay.
I know when this is Chris Greer speaking. I know when we were here last, you guys had just begun to kick off a traffic study. So I'm just curious if the study continues still, if you guys are in any kind of process with that currently.
It's still underway, and we're planning to give these numbers to our traffic engineer tomorrow, the 270, together with an estimate for the commercial development pads, which may add another 10 to 15 if it's a mixed use, the way the example you had shared, Terry, looking at additional residential units there, so perhaps 280, but yes, we're going to give him those numbers to integrate into the overall report.
Okay.
And I think in those commercial sites, there was thought to moving the buildings forward.
Correct.
Like to the sidewalk line and putting the parking behind the commercial so it
Right, internalize,
internalizes
Yeah.
the parking
right.
so that it looks more like the rest of the village.
Those, this is Johanna Bach, those commercial buildings, those would be 3 stories as well, not 4, right? Or
They-
beyond.
They haven't been designed yet, but what we've been looking at have all been 3-story. There hasn't been a plan for 4.
Yeah, Charlie sent me something that had 2s and 3s.
Yes,
And,
that's,
you know,
yep, right.
Yeah, very, very village-like, similar to the ones
Yeah.
that I showed at the East Village.
Right.
So, but when we get to that, we can discuss that more, but it's good to have it in the back of your mind, I think,
Yeah.
what the options are. Okay. Jamie,
I'm listening.
so what's our next steps? We're waiting for the traffic study.
Well, I think they need to, if this is a concept that is acceptable,
Right.
then they need to flesh out this plan.
Right.
So when they do that, we can start, moving it forward through the seeker process. So it's really, it's new.
Right.
It's a new plan. So, of course, all the engineering has to be reviewed, so we need
Yeah.
a full
So can we lay out
set.
some steps for the applicant going forward so that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he probably knows that he
Right.
needs to give us
Well-
a full package, right? A full
And that's
set.
the plan. Do you want to have us come back with the architectural renderings and views of the site prior to going to that level, or?
That's up to you, if you would like to look at the architecturals first,
I-
but they,
A 3D
I don't want to speak for everybody, but
Yeah.
Okay. We were
think I just said-
talking with.
Yeah, I think it was a big, this is Chris again. I think it was a big point when we met last,
Yes.
so I think it would be
yeah,
something. that
we didn't
would
care
want to
for
see.
the other.
Right, which we took note of,
Yeah.
yep. We can address and come back
We
with.
would like a full environmental impact, not impact, but
Yep.
full environmental assessment.
Full form.
right, full form.
It's been a long day. Just to flush out any potential issues, so
Okay.
if we need to get moving on doing any of them,
Sure,
study or something.
Okay.
Other than traffic.
yeah.
And you did your.
What's our
You
increment?
did your environmental
decide it
on the
was a type
site,
one?
did you do that?
The short
How many
form.
forms do we have?
Oh, that was underway last, when Charlie last
Yeah.
was here.
Yeah.
I don't know the status of
Okay.
that
Yeah, I
right
think
now.
All right, so,
We did complete that.
You did?
Okay.
Okay.
What's your acreage of disturbance? here?
The total acreage is about 17 across when if we were to combine all of the lots.
Right, okay, so when they bring in you're supposed to declare lead agency early on in the process, but I think we should at least get that architectural and get some fleshed out plans.
Yeah.
And then we'll declare lead agency, send out notices on the type 1 and move it through the process. And we have to refer it to the town board.
Village. Hold that
I'm catching it, I got yelled at by Chuck earlier.
up. I would like that.
So I would think that after this next rendering, that we can certainly refer it to the village board for the PDD.
For the PDD. Okay. All set, everybody? No other questions?
So should we plan on submitting the full form and the architectural renderings as the next?
Well, I think we need the full form just to assess involved agencies, if nothing, you know.
Okay. We have it at like 90% complete already.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you very much for listening
Thank
to
you.
our comments and taking them seriously.
Of course.
You put a lot of hard work into this and it shows.
We're happy
Thank
with
you.
that. Thank you all.
Great job. Yeah.
Okay, from there, we move on to new business, which is Mr. Carl Ashley with Entry Street.
Evening.
Evening, nice
Carl
to see you
Ashley.
again. Thank you.
If we had a chance to look at the digital thing, I think it's still left in the staffing office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
You know what, here, Lisa and I
Yeah,
used
take
to
one
always
person.
share,
I'll show from yours then.
especially when you get around the corner.
We've seen this in 2 or 3 years now, right? You guys had this
Change that.
Sort of.
Setbacks. 30 foot setbacks, they're supposed to be 40.
How's that?
I think so, if you are. So,
Welcome.
thank you. I guess the thing is, we've gone through, obviously, got some drawings here and done it. Tried to overlay the topos. The full topos made it really busy, so we pulled some of it out. But, you know, he put together a nice drawing for us. Julian, I would hope to be here, but he had family commitments this week and couldn't be here. I know he did talk to Mr. Scrummo a bit, so got some of the things there. Basically, what we've done is we've got 26 essentially conforming lots. You know, a couple of them we'll have to take a look at. I think lots 1 and 14 we'll have to dedicate that they face the street because, you know, being corner lots, but other than that, they'll conform. As far as the road goes, which I know that's the big thing, we're essentially leaving it in place.
Gentry?
Gentry Road,
Okay.
yeah, Gentry Road, leaving that essentially in place. I've had good dialogue with the cemetery, tried to buy some property from them. The price was, well, their lot density is much higher than mine, and the price was very, very expensive. So we didn't go that route, but they normally don't build anywhere within 30 feet of the pavement anyway. And I talked to them about, you know, where it would be with this if they gave easement from the center line to the edge of their property, it's basically 18 feet off of the paved area. Had no problem with that. So that was good. Tom was there. He talked to the board. Mr. Farrell may get us something. I know he's an attorney that's on their board, so I think they're going to get us something that
Okay, so
lets us move
that's
forward.
in the works, but not.
Well, it's, yeah, I mean, if he wants to, if you want a letter of intent or something, and we've had the dialogue, they have no problem with what we're doing. They would rather have the road dedicated and brought to spec and they, you know, and where they are with it. They have no problem granting the rights of way that, as they need to. If you need something in writing on that, obviously we'll get it. I can talk to Mr. Farrell. They probably have to have a board meeting, to do anything, but in concept, they were open to granting the easements that we needed. And obviously I would as well, so we can center line the road about where it is now. Engineering would require, and the DPW working together, the Public Works, to see what's there, make sure the road bed is stable, and bring it to village spec. So that's the next step with it. But
Okay, and on that front, were you still maintaining it as a private road?
No, we're gonna, that would allow us the 60-foot easements to dedicate it over to the village, the way it should be.
Okay, comments on that, Chuck?
First we're hearing about it, we would certainly want to look at it.
Yeah.
I know there's also a force main for the sewer that goes right close to that road too.
Right.
So we'll be looking at that.
Yeah,
We'll get to that point.
and that's frankly why I didn't want to move it, because I know the force main was put in after what's there, so my assumption is they didn't put it under it, and if I've got to move it entirely on my property, then I'm probably going over the top of it, which would be more cumbersome. So I think keeping it where it is probably our best bet. Of course, we have to identify exactly where it is and in that whole thing, but this appears to be the best solution, and having the cooperation of the neighbor was what we talked about, and that's really what I needed to know too, is to say this is the village desire, and I got them to say, okay, if that's what they want, it's good with us. And
Okay.
so.
And you went across the back of the, let's see, not on the Erminger, but is it on the Rutherford property? Is that?
Well, where it says Courtney Rutherford, that's my home. So I
Okay,
bought that
are you
with Courtney.
at the lot line?
With what now?
Like you were talking about Dale Waldron's property last time and,
Yeah, what we're doing, essentially what we're doing is extending Hunter Drive down through and turning up and coming up to Gentry. I've acquired the 3 parcels from Erminger, so that was what enabled us to do that.
Okay.
The triangle is not mine, as well as the 2 other parcels on the river, and, yeah.
so the section that shows like the road right of way, you control all of that now?
Yes, exactly.
So what's there now? Because I was down there and it's kind of like a dirt road and then there's kind of cars parked everywhere and I was trying to figure out who owns what and
Well, there's the barn on the right, that's also mine.
Okay.
So that's the corner, you're seeing the barn there, and there's a fence there.
Okay,
Yeah, I paved the driveway up to the edge of the triangle, not knowing whether I've been putting a road on it.
okay. So I was seeing the dirt
Yeah, the gravel's
road
there.
and it kind of looked like a driveway and
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out, you control all of that
Exactly,
property now?
yes.
Okay.
Precisely. And
I
that's
know there was
why-
that one corner.
Yeah, that's why we can come back and offer this now
Right.
before
This little
the
corner
Erminger
was.
estate owned that triangle and I couldn't bust through Hunter.
Right.
And that's why originally we were
Right.
trying to hit this tap and loop it there. This, I think, works much more effectively. We've left area for drainage and siltation down on lots 7 and 8. And then the outfall through Waldron's property, going to ask her to amend and move, or we have asked to move the easement to the west, so we don't have to raise her garage to put in a
That's what I was
drainage.
remembering you were talking about.
So, yeah,
Okay.
they built the garage over the existing easement. It works just as effectively now with the property. We've got control to move it to the west, move the easement to the west, and then we can use that to have our outfall or discharge to the river that's going to be required. The lot line, almost the back lot lines between the easternmost and then the middle lots, that back lot line runs right straight down to the sewer outfall, so that's a nice gravity feed there, where the pump station is. Pump station is on the private road. You can see it's 15-foot sanitary easement.
Yeah.
That's, in that area is where your pump station is. So that's where everything
Yeah.
falls to.
Okay.
So it runs pretty naturally right down there without without any bends or twists, and it's all gonna be gravity feed from there. Yeah. That's what we have.
Greg, what are your engineering thoughts?
I mean, I see some things that need to be worked out. I'm not sure any of them are extremely difficult. Water would come off a tap and we would have to see if the pump station would need to be upgraded, if this is gonna flow into that. A couple little pinch points with right-of-way, like this location here. And the setback is only 30 feet front yard as opposed to required 40.
Right.
I know when this came in last time, there was a lot of discussion about that being okay. You know, I thought the consensus was that it was probably okay in a smaller village type feel. But if that's the case, I mean, if he's gonna stay 30, we'd need a variance for that.
Like the whole subdivision would need, like the whole subdivision would need a blanket variance.
For that front yard.
And what do you think about fire department access? Is this
I'm sorry, that's.
fire department?
Well, I think the fire department can easily do this. At the end here, we may need to do, and this is one of the things that we've done, we may need to do some sort of a hammerhead type, or you know, kind of sort of a hammerhead. You know,
Yeah.
you can do them where they go this way, come back, and
Right.
I think the fire department would want something like that.
Okay.
There is, it's a big lot there. It looks like there's room, might take up some of the stormwater basin area. But like I said, I'm not sure it's a deal breaker. It's something that's gonna have to kind of get weighed into that.
What's that?
Down at the end here.
Oh, yeah.
Typically, at the fire department and the buses or anything like that, it's gonna require some sort of a turnaround.
Yeah, talking to Tom, he says, as long as I can access it to bring my vehicles in the winter time so I don't have to plow my whole area, he says, I'm good with it. So, he'd like to be able to use that access as well, which is what he's doing now. There is already a turnaround existing, so.
So, I mean, they did submit a long form EAF last time. Need to be updated, I'm sure. I have not checked all dimensional stuff. There's like a couple of these that are maybe look a little off, but nothing that I can see is an immediate impact on anything.
Okay.
So it would be nice to get zoning table, that sort of stuff at some point in time.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be good sooner rather than later. I believe they're also off on rear yards, so overall, it's a 20-foot differential.
Is it 40-foot rear?
Yeah, 40 rear, so.
30 front, 40 rear.
Oh, you're right.
You know,
Rear
and the
front.
question is, can, you know, any of that be reasonably solved by moving the road, you know, reducing the number of lots, you know, what's reasonable? You know, should all the lots be non-conforming? Should we try to make some of them conforming and some non-conforming? You know, and ultimately, it's going to be a pretty big decision for ZBA, Andrew, when you go and, you know, as a liaison. In my time here at the village, I have not seen this kind of a blanket modification of the variance. I'm not saying it's not possible, but a lot of it has gone PDD, so.
Okay. What size homes are you looking at building?
Well, generally, yeah, the market's gonna bring in probably ranches, maybe raised ranches, and we talked about having it, you know, the barndominium thing, we were doing it, but probably a 30 by 60, 1,800 square foot footprint.
Okay.
And that was part of what we were looking at with the setbacks and that, you know, the desire for those 1,400 to 1,800 square foot ranches, and then if you add a two-car garage to that, the footprint kind of gets outside of the available land. And I think that's 4 years ago when we came and talked about the 30-foot setback, was more because we thought the garages were going to make it, you know, you put a garage on there and then you got no room for the house. And you know, people like their garages. So.
Okay, thoughts?
Can I ask a
Yes,
question?
absolutely.
I haven't seen the plans yet, but on the Hunter side where the road's gonna come in, who's gonna be responsible for that? Because we can't, if we come down and maintain the one road,
Yeah.
we can't get down the private road. So we have to go out into the town, come back in.
You'd have to turn around and go back.
We'd have to go back down Tappan Street, go into the town, come down Cook Drive to service that. So that's why I don't know, are you looking for the village to service that little spot or no? Just a question.
Hadn't really thought I was gonna dedicate it over to the village, so I guess,
Is
the
that
village
spot,
line.
right, is that in the village right down in there?
Yeah, the village line
Pretty close.
is right at the
Okay.
edge there, so you'd be crossing, so I guess there's probably one lot on that Hunter from Cook, right? There's one lot inside of Van Buren, and then the rest of it would be,
Well, your house
The
was the
village.
first one, and that was.
I'm the first one in the village,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a split at one time, might be all in the village now, but yeah, okay. I can look at it with Greg,
Yeah.
just a question.
Okay, does anybody have any comments?
I guess I would have one. I
Kevin.
heard Kevin, sorry. Barndominium in there, I mean, I know what that is. I mean, is that part of what could be in there?
that's, conceptually, that was one of the marketing ideas we had, was to allow people that want their garage space, maybe have a motorcycle and a couple of cars and a boat, and put them underneath, and then have a ranch above it. So it's essentially a raised ranch, but the idea is to put an elevator as well as stairs, so they can age in place. That's really all that is raised ranches with elevators.
Because I've seen some barndominiums in other
Yeah.
districts that kind of look like barns.
Yeah.
I don't know if that fits the village's,
Architecturally, I don't know that that's exactly what I.
okay. I just heard the word and I wanted to make sure we
Yeah.
talked about it.
Good to clarify.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
how does everybody feel about the setbacks?
I mean, it's all very tight.
There's 7,500 square foot lots, but that's the zoning.
I guess I have some concerns about the setbacks, which we had before.
Yep.
I would suggest that maybe not so much on this side, because people are buying into what's there. But the side where there are neighbors on Cook Drive,
Yeah.
I would be concerned about the rear yard setback.
Interesting.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. If you're buying this, you know what you're getting, and it is
Exactly.
somewhat isolated. There's also the question of the ones that abut the houses at the back of Tappan is a similar situation to Cook.
So you're referencing the rear setback of 30 going to the 40 at those points?
Yeah,
I don't know with the road layout, it doesn't work, but I don't know what kind of shifting could be.
Well, it's obviously going to limit the architectural design that we're going to be able to put on there, but, so you reduce the footprint where the house can go.
Or you can seek an individual variance maybe at each,
Yeah.
on a particular case.
As they build. Yeah. Right, have it conforming, and then if they want to.
Because it may not be a 10-foot impact, it may be.
Right, no, there may very well not
Maybe
be.
a small impact, as opposed to somebody putting the whole house against the rear property line.
And there's a couple of Craftsman plans we've looked at that may fit. The other idea we tossed around that I don't think it's as appealing is attached. Then you can go with 15,000 square foot lots, and it allows for, a marriage wall between it, but I think that the single family detached is a better fit. But that was a way to solve part of that, because you can go, you lose, the side is gone, so now your square footage can go wider.
I think there's definitely a market for the smaller single-family homes.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. But I agree with Jamie's point that I'm concerned about the backyards at the adjacent properties, existing properties. In here, she's right, you know what you're getting. You know, you can say, I don't wanna live there, the backyard is too small. But that's not so much a choice for the people skirting the property.
This is Johanna Bach. I know you said aging in place, so would these be targeted towards people who are like retirees, or are these just for anyone, or I'm just thinking of like.
Just for anyone, I'm not age limiting
Sure.
the
I just
thing, I'm
didn't
not
know
looking
if
for
it was
restriction.
meant to be like a retirement village type thing, or if we're talking about little kids like running around in the background with that kind of setback.
There absolutely,
Dogs and, I mean, I don't know.
yeah, there absolutely is that potential, I'm not gonna restrict to purchases, but what I'm watching, and I'm also a real estate broker, what I'm watching is frankly, it's people, my primary buyer pool that I'm finding and talking to business owners and such about, is those folks that wanna stay in the community, have the bigger homes, don't have any place to go, so they're staying in the bigger homes. And they don't want to, but they want to stay in the community. So I'm looking at probably more cross-town moving than anything else. And that's opening up, larger homes for families.
Right.
I mean, that's likely what's gonna be there. There might be a few young professionals, dual income, no kids type of a scenario that may be there, but for the most part, I think we're gonna find our
Well, also
pre-retirement.
could be first-time home buyers.
And
trying to get out.
trying to get out.
Right.
Absolutely.
We know that dynamic.
Those size houses are really hard to define. like,
Yes,
but-
they go like
and,
crazy
Yeah,
on the
because they're
market.
just,
Especially right now, they're also so advanced, especially right now with the market the way it is for people to find just a smaller home they can start.
Maybe
And
affordable.
maybe they
yeah.
don't want a big yard, maybe they don't want to maintain a big yard, so they like a smaller yard to work on.
Sidewalk.
They could do a dual purpose
Right.
for 55 and older, should I say that?
No.
No, you can't. But you're probably right. You're probably right, was that?
I don't know what that
On lot 16,
Oh,
there's
Isn't
there's a
is.
shed.
And a fence.
And there's a fence on 17. Do these belong to, what's the story there?
16, 17. Oh, that's what you would call encroachment?
Okay.
Yeah,
So it does belong to,
the people up above.
okay.
Yeah, on Cook. And one's a little dog area that they've got kind of there. I haven't spoken about. They're aware.
It happens anytime there's empty property.
Yeah. Going back deeper.
No, and I mean, and especially, because if you were to put even just a 10-foot deck off the back of one of these.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
You're right.
you do much of anything.
You're at the lot line.
Yeah, you're just
Yes.
a stone.
Yeah, and I don't know,
And everyone-
I think part of what we talked about,
I want to hang out that close.
and I think what we talked about last time, and I could refer to the minutes from, back when we talked about the setbacks, I think the setbacks, we actually talked about the decks being inside that footprint was when we did it. So they're gonna have the deck, maybe designed where there's an L shape and the deck's inside the L instead of at the outside, so it doesn't go across that line. I think that's one of the caveats we put in there, is it includes the extensions and decks and outbuildings and all that other stuff that we build inside the footprint.
Good question.
Would this require, this is Chris, would this require some kind of partnership with the town, just seeing that border is exactly along the backyards of like 15, 16, 17, 18?
For the setbacks?
Well, I'm seeing where the village line and the town line is, and it's right on the back property lines of 15, 16, 17. And some of the road conversation would be roads moving from town to village. I just didn't know if there's any kind of partnership that we would need to take with the town planning boards, or if this just sticks within the village.
The town of Van Buren plow Cook now?
They do. They do plow that whole area.
They occasionally come down Hunter, not every day.
Well, that's why, I don't know how much of that's private in there, but we don't go around that side, and that's,
Well,
they'll just talk, because we can't get to it from.
Yeah, it's dedicated up to the village line. So sometimes they hit it, sometimes they don't.
Okay. Well, Jamie, do you have suggestions about procedure?
I mean, this is
I mean, we
so,
have-
this is,
We have
it's,
a promise of an easement, but we don't.
well, right, I mean, it would, that would have to come to fruition, let's start with that. And, you know,
Right.
that's a for sure. There's so many details, you know, the engineering details and the stormwater and the road profiling and all of that. And the threshold question of whether this is going to even, you know, be acceptable from the standpoint of, you know, the variances.
Right.
And how that can be looked at. I mean, it's certainly come along. I mean, a lot of the questions that you know, we set forth before are in the process of being answered. But it's certainly not a subdivision plan, you know, yet, it's just a concept.
Right. So I guess
So I'm
one
not quite
question
sure.
I would have for the board is there a strong feeling about the setbacks, whether it be central or the ones bordering the other properties?
I mean, I think absolutely you have to consider the one bordering the other properties.
Yes.
I do agree with that idea that what's on lots, you know, 1 through 14,
Yeah.
you know what you're getting, and you
Right.
can make that decision. But the other lots, you don't have that choice. So I think that would be something that I would want to see different.
I would agree with that.
Sure,
So that's,
not a problem.
I vote on that also.
okay. All right, so that sounds like a consensus.
Yeah, I mean,
Are connected homes allowed in R1? I have to, you
yeah.
had brought that up.
Like town.
They are, what happens is you just, your footprint is 15,000 square foot lots at 7,500. So, and then you can attach them, put them on.
15,000 square foot lots.
Right.
And one on the lot, on the 15,000 square foot lot, or?
Well,
No.
then it'd be a duplex lot.
Right.
So you put a single structure that's two-family dwelling.
It's a two-family, okay, that's what I was saying, it's not
On 2 lots.
you know, connected with the lot line.
So you essentially
Okay.
get rid of the setbacks in the middle between the two properties.
That would be how the zoning would work. If we wanted to have it so that it was more townhouse with attached and work it that same way, that would be a different variance.
Either way, we would need a variance, is what, anyway.
Well, if we do that, the way it is now, they're conforming, except for the the setbacks are set with a dialogue we had a time ago that never got resolved, so it's still sitting the way it was. If it needs to shift, then we'll shift and we'll have to design accordingly. And the homes, you know,
Yeah, I
it's
think,
easier with a little bigger footprint to design and build anything, especially since we're probably looking at people who want single level.
Right.
So,
I know that, you know, that our last group that we had in came back with a much better plan than what they had anticipated, and I just wonder if there is, I am not a designer, so,
That's
you know,
okay.
but it's something, if there is a plan B, can the road be configured in a different way that can assist with these setbacks? Does it have to go the way we're looking at it? Can it come in some other way? Don't know, just saying.
no, I agree.
yeah, the previous draft did come in through Tappan. The only issue there really is it's a 54-foot wide right of way rather than 60, so it's, you know, we need a variance there. But it was no less, the lot sizes, I mean, we're actually larger than, you know, the square footage is larger than the 7,500 required. So,
Is there any issue about which entrance on Tappan would be
I would think it'd be the best where the road is now, but, whatever, we can certainly look at whatever they want to do.
This made the most sense once I was able to acquire the other pieces to go through.
Because you gotta remember the people at the end of the, the private road at the end, they still gotta get down there.
Right. People that, along the river.
Correct.
And that was the other thing we talked about, was if we came in Hunter and left at the other egress at Tappan, the one I'm not using, then I'd have backyards backing up to Gentry. Which, just really isn't. And just leave Gentry as it is, but, and, not build off of it, so to speak. But that really doesn't, I don't think that's the best vision for it, frankly.
No, and I think Jamie has a valid point that if there were something that were a little more village street-like, that would be positive.
I guess I think before we would approach the ZBA and go for that kind of variance, which, the question is how early in the process would it
Yes.
go? It certainly can't go now. I mean, there's just
No.
not enough here in detail. But it would have to be addressed pretty quickly.
Can he go and float the idea? Is that part before the horse? Informational.
I think I wouldn't suggest that until this board is comfortable with
Okay.
with a plan, at least a little more comfortable with it. But yes, it's a discussion point that can be had. There's nothing prevents them from doing that.
Okay, next steps.
More detail, more, a lot more detail, a lot more looking at some of, how to solve some of these potential setback issues that have been raised. And, look at another concept probably. And then all the road profiling will have to be done, all the stormwater and so forth. But I think that this basic gist of it needs to be fleshed out a little bit more.
Okay. Any suggestions or comments? Because I really don't know where else to take it, so.
I just.
I mean, I could change the setbacks and look at architecturally what can be built on those things, but then it's conforming. The only thing we talked about was changing the setbacks. Those lots are conforming lots inside of zoning. I don't have a lot of different places I can put the road.
Right there, they wouldn't be conforming the way you've got them laid out for the footprint because of the setbacks,
Okay.
right? So
Right,
they're
well, because
currently
of the-
non-conforming.
Well, the lots themselves are greater than 7,500 square foot. They've got greater than 75 feet at the building line. Where I've got the outlines for setback are the only difference there. But that's fine. We can.
Well, we'll take that under advisement, and I think. Looking at the, my thing went away. Just wanted to look at the code again. I think that you need to look at that.
Okay.
I guess convince this board that this is going to be reasonably buildable in accordance with the code. I do think these lots are a problem. I don't know if you can move the road. I'm not sure what the, not my bailiwick, but
No.
it's a concern of the board, and I think these lots are a concern as well.
Yeah, they're consistent for the most part with what's on Cook Drive. And they're, except for the 3 lots on Tappan, they're pretty consistent with most of the other village lots. But they're 75 by 110, 75 by 100,
But I mean, if you were to make them conforming, then your building line would be way,
It'd be
way
back.
back, and is it buildable?
Well, then we may need to push and lose a couple lots to make it fit.
Yeah.
That's what we'll have to play with.
Yeah, that's
I understand that. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of tweaking to where the road can go.
Yeah.
Um,
Make it,
If we probably drafted 20 different sketches of how to fit it in there, and that one seemed to have the best fit.
Was there any discussion about a cul-de-sac? What's your feeling about cul-de-sacs?
We don't like them when they're fine, man. People like them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fire departments don't like them, municipalities don't like them.
Well, but people like them. Yeah, people that move in like them.
Yeah.
You do.
Okay. So you're thinking about, you think I should possibly look at seeing if there's a clusters? I mean, I was told, multiple egress points all along, so I just gave that up. I mean, if we came off a Gentry with a couple of pods and clusters, I don't know that wouldn't work, but I would never first come and approach that because it's not.
I guess I need to look
Do you know what I mean?
at,
Yeah. I think it would depend on how the roadways work and how that feels.
Yeah.
It might be okay. Usually,
Get your trace paper out and do some
the front
scratch
yard
sketches.
Oh, believe me, you should see
not
the
measured the
stack
same
of
way on cul-de-sac.
crayons.
She has
The way it is here. Right. So,
It's become quite a hobby. Is that
I say, Kevin, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak under the.
That's okay.
Kevin. She should know my name, but, I guess the concern is still the setbacks for most of us.
Yes.
Sure.
I
Even
think all
though
of us.
possibly we could think about one or the other, but not both, I'm thinking, maybe even. I don't even know if I'm only speaking for me on that, I'm not
Yeah.
speaking for the board. But definitely the setbacks,
The rear
And then,
setbacks, I think,
yes.
are the biggest concern for everyone.
yeah, everything. I think.
No, and that was one of the things, I think we put them both in there a while ago,
Yeah.
and some of this board wasn't here, so I guess we should rehash the hash or re-ring the bell.
Yeah.
But we had talked about it, okay, essentially one or the other to make it so it's a buildable footprint.
Right.
Okay, so, and didn't need both, put them in both because we hadn't decided which way was best. And this is kind of floating that the better of the two would be a shallower front line setback and a deeper backyard setback. Is that
Probably.
the consensus I'm saying? And that's fine.
Yeah.
Because when we looked at it, by having both 40s, it was very shallow for any kind of building. I mean, if you've got 30 feet, you put a 20-foot garage on there, you only have 10 feet to put the rest of the house. It just doesn't,
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind, I mean, some of these lots, I mean, they're basically, the building area is like 60 by probably close to 70.
Very large.
It's a pretty big area to build in. And
Right.
So it's not like they're so small you can't build in them.
Right.
I think what you're looking at is it'd be nice to have a little more leeway as to just where and depth and versus width, that sort of thing. That could be handled on an individual basis, I don't think I'd want a whole bunch of cul-de-sacs. To me, it's not village feel,
Absolutely not.
If we wanted to do something, maybe we could look at looping this back into Gentry, having a loop coming around like that. May lose a lot, may not lose any. But I don't think I definitely wouldn't want a long cul-de-sac like that.
I mean, depending on the style of the homes, really moving them closer to the sidewalk is more village-like.
No, and I think, again, there is enough footprint there with what we talked about.
And that's what I think.
When you crowded them both, perhaps we could talk about limiting footprint, square footage, so we're not,
Yeah.
so we're not filling the whole space,
That would help, I think.
Having grown up in a city where each house is 8 feet apart, because you get a driveway between them, these are big lots. But, I'm not sure if you want that feeling here either.
Well, there have been some, the village feels great, but there are issues that have been associated with the villages where the houses are so close.
Right.
And people have toys, and people have bigger cars, and people's.
People turn their front yards into driveways.
Yes, and they, they go into the sidewalk. We haven't talked about sidewalks.
Yeah.
Here, it is the village.
Yes.
And so we want the village feel, but you don't want to create the same problems. You want a better
Right.
village feel
Right.
than those
Maybe
issues.
there's an option for the home closer to the street and then a driveway in the garage set back so that there is more parking space off the road, not garage forward.
All very nice elements.
But
But those are flexibilities that.
Yeah.
This is a subdivision plan, and there is no control over the architecture
Right.
at all. There's only control over the building
Yeah.
envelope, the setbacks, the lot sizes, the road profiles, and, that's a difference, and that's different from what we're looking at on the PDDs, of course.
Right.
So they're all ideas, but they would have to be implementable by the developer or whoever buys an individual lot.
Valid point, Dave.
I think that consistently runs with it, that's fine. I think we were prepared to work with one setback or another, or split it and, manipulate it a little bit, but it was just the idea to not have it so that it was a point where, again, you put a 2-car garage on there and you do it. I mean, you could limit to 1-car garage and probably make it work. But, most folks have 2 cars and they want them inside, and it makes for a cleaner
Or a
environment.
3-car garage.
And as we're starting to look at electric vehicles and charging inside garages, it's gonna be, where we're going, so.
So, do you think you have enough information
I've got
from
some
us?
ammo, yeah.
Okay.
So, good, and I'll probably have Mr. Julian here next time. I think I'm gonna be out of state at the next meeting, but.
Okay, that's
Come
fine.
back. All right. Any other suggestions or comments? I'm open, because I'll take them all and try and fit them in, really.
Sadly, we can't design it.
I know. Okay.
So is there an official subdivision application
Yeah.
that's pending and?
Yes.
And fees have been
Fees have been paid
paid
and
and
all
so
that,
forth?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one last piece of business that the mayor has asked that we consider, is a deposit in escrow for new people bringing things before us, which is within our means, it's in our code. But it helps to offset some of the costs of engineering review and things like that for the applicants. So they pay, put into escrow, and when it's used up, it's used up. But that's the thought. And
Well, when it's used up, you put in more.
okay, Bruce didn't say that to me.
Okay, so usually the way that escrow agreements, and they also can cover legal, which is great for the village. And most, applicants are used to that at most every place.
Every place.
I asked you what Town of DeWitt does. Because they're, that's one item that.
Yeah, so the engineer looks at something and says, oh, I think I'm gonna spend.
Yeah.
X amount of time on
Right.
it, and a deposit is put forth, and then they say, Jamie, do you think you're gonna, what might you have in legal?
So they vary it by,
Absolutely.
oh, they do?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so the mayor was saying a fee, like $2,000 or $2,500 per,
Yeah, every municipality we represent, which is probably about
okay?
10 or so,
I'm
they
just
take
repeating
escrow
what the
and-
mayor told me.
Yeah, yeah, and it's even in your code. that,
Yes,
you know,
it is in the
So
code.
that, you take money and you get reimbursed for any, professional fees that are associated with review of a project.
Kevin, again, sorry. So these are for the floaters that we've been seeing come through, this fee we're talking about?
It's for any
I
applicant.
mean, these apps that aren't really applications yet, they're
Like they want
What we've
to
seen
just
some towns
look at our
do-
thoughts.
conceptuals?
What we've seen some towns do is that you can do like a pre-application kind of preliminary thing, and it costs like $250 or something. It's reasonable, but it gives you guys some way of reimbursing, like, for our time. Because, we've done some of these where it's like, they're not real applications, and it's like we haven't been
Right.
the time for it.
They're
because
concepts.
We figured you guys didn't get paid for it, so, so
Yeah.
you end up beating a little bit
So
of
you
time.
kind of get one preliminary, feel out the board meeting for your $250.
Something like that,
whatever.
and then those aren't actually.
And then when it's a formal application, there's an escrow fee.
Right,
We had one recent, not too long ago, that it was over $10,000 and they refused to pay it. And they did end up paying it in the long run, but when we went after it to get the billing back for the engineering fees and some of it, they said, we're not doing that.
well,
So
what,
that's,
what happens then is you get an estimated amount of the engineering fees, and they're different, right? But
Right.
maybe it is say, okay, we'll start with 2,000. But once that's spent, then the town needs to stop the review, and the village as well.
it's important to be quick.
You have me on camera. That was not me. Someone else said that.
And the village would request more to fund the escrow because the fees have.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we don't, this has been an unusual time where,
Yeah.
these
Yes.
projects, like, they're smaller projects, and, the legal's like nothing, There's bigger projects, like we're gonna have to, on the last project, it's gonna be a type 1 action. There's legal stuff that needs to be done, there's a lot of engineering on all of these. So, I guess the mayor's looking for a recommendation
He
from the
actually
board.
said that we can just make a motion and pass it, but
Well,
I'm feeling like we need a little bit more discussion about what we want in the motion. And I guess I'm also looking to you for advice as to, is that what we really do? It's just pass a motion? It seems like there needs to be a lot of.
Already.
Yeah, it is, it is.
So-
I looked, but it would seem like it needs some thought into the steps of, it's incrementally this much, and when it's used, then you need to fund it this much more. Who's getting the pricing on the fees for the attorney so I think it needs more than just a motion.
The logistics need to be.
Yes,
So,
thank you. Thank you for translating.
Maybe what we should do is, and I'm not gonna write this right now, but I'm just gonna make some notes. But that for the next meeting, we make a recommendation to the town board.
Village.
Also the village board or whoever else wants to listen. I'm the worst. Yes, that board of trustees, but we make a recommendation.
Yes.
And the recommendation would have,
So then they would approve our recommendation
Right.
and then we would vote it in, is that?
right, and then it would be implemented in the codes office.
Okay.
Basically, like a policy
Right.
Policy
But I think-
recommendation.
Steps, guidelines, logistics.
Kevin, again, if they put in let's say it's 2,000 in their escrow account, obviously, to get to the point where they go, oh, we're gonna dead this project, we're gonna cancel it. They have 1,000 left, do they get that back? Or do we just-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Just one, I assume that would be the case.
Yes.
You never wanna make an assumption.
No,
Yeah.
it's always good to ask the questions, Kevin.
Now, also, if the 2,000 is spent, I don't know, in past times, does it feel like that they feel like that they're just getting strung along and needing
Well,
more?
In
It-
other municipalities, yes, we have heard that. Yes, yeah, you hear that, but it's generally not the case.
Kevin, again, I'm just making defense for the mayor and the village budget. I mean, somewhere that money comes out, and you
Yes.
guys don't work for free, so
Right.
a lot of these people come 3, 4, or 5 times before they actually
Right.
make an application, if ever. So that's what the mayor's talking about, trying to cover, is
Yes,
those,
yes, it's
those
covering
incidentals that never get-
costs for
never get a
consultants
permit.
is basically.
they never get a
yes.
permit, they never make any
Right.
tax revenue,
Exactly.
whatever, so the village is out.
And the village
the money.
attorney and engineer and
They're all
whoever
villainous.
have expended
Sure.
time
Sure.
that then doesn't get reimbursed.
Okay.
It makes a lot of sense to
Yeah.
me, I just
I
don't
agree.
know all of the ins and outs, and if we're going to write that, we should know all the options.
Like, if it's like a concept plan, someone
Yeah,
comes
do
in
you,
and.
do you have any examples
Yeah,
from?
what other,
It's really not as specific as we're looking at right now. I feel
But
like
we
the
love
mayor.
specific.
Yes, I feel like the mayor is looking for some specific guidance, and I think we certainly should do that
Okay.
as a planning board. And I think he's looking for more specifics. Like I said, it's a bit more,
Well, I'm just
casual,
thinking about
really.
the, you
Yeah.
ask the engineer how much, so where in that process do we ask for a fee proposal, which takes time,
I like,
From like the engineer and stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah, nobody ever asked us for, because we actually, there is one, I take that back. I mean, there is a fee structure and everything for our
okay,
time.
so,
And how we bill.
Right.
Overall, like a blanket agreement.
but is there an estimate per project? Like, how does that work?
No,
Because
sometimes we'll
you
get
just-
asked, like if there's a big project, and it's like, okay, what do you think this is gonna, we should take for a retainer or something like that? Is it 1,000, 2,000, 10,000? If you get
Right.
to massive projects, and then all of a sudden they're up there. Typically, they'll just go in increments. I mean, you don't want to take a large, like a $10,000 deposit if you're not gonna, if all you really need is to take it in steps.
Right,
Okay, you run out of
understood.
1,000,
I
you're
just
gonna
was
take-
looking at the
Yeah.
mechanism of, we have an applicant, and we need to determine what the escrow amount would be, so then we have to approach your firm and say, how much do you think you need to expend, which I would assume would be in writing, right? No,
it's
okay.
not necessarily.
Yeah, not really. Not really, you get the clerk
So
calls
we can
up
like
and says,
call you
hey.
on the phone and say,
Yeah.
how much is, I'm
And then
looking at the lag
sometimes they'll
time
just
in
look
the-
at it and go, okay, it's gonna be a major subdivision, let's take $2,000.
Okay.
And then they put that in, and if it starts getting down there, they'll call up and say, you gotta put some more money, and somebody has a feel for it. Sometimes we don't even
Okay.
get asked. and
So
they just-
I'm trying to work on the mechanism.
Yes,
to-
correct.
To outline that
Yep.
for Michelle
agree.
and everyone of how that's gonna actually work.
Yeah, I would say
Instead
the
of-
vast majority of our review projects, we don't get asked how much should we take as a retainer.
Okay.
They look at it and go, okay, this is gonna be a major subdivision, let's start with a couple $1,000s, or, hey, this is a simple, 2-lot subdivision, engineering fees, let's just have them put in like $200, $300, $400 or something like
Okay.
that.
Right. It's
So, like, I don't know how we make that decision on the,
I don't think you're going to make the decision. I think that
but somebody is, and don't we have to provide them with the tools to do that?
that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Terry, I get that. Why don't, I hear what's been said here. I think, we're talking about maybe some small project, having a small amount, maybe having one time as a concept. You can come in for free
Right.
and talk to us.
Right.
And then we'll talk about, and I'll talk to Greg, and we'll come up with the way we've seen it done and a recommendation,
Right.
so that there's a guideline.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
I
fair.
think we need to provide them with a guideline, because otherwise no one will know what's going on.
To
Michelle's
make
nodding
it
her
fair
head.
to the applicant.
Right,
Well,
it's gotta be.
It has to be structured, there's
Consistency,
things that are cut and
yeah,
dry. I mean, this sounds like it's fairly standard practice. so
Okay, so very
generally
much
I'd be
so.
supportive of it, but I agree with you, I think
Yeah, we need,
a little bit more than just a
I need
handshake.
things to dot and cross off and,
Right, right. And I do think that we have seen more and bigger projects.
yes.
And it was, and also, years ago, remember Steve was here and he was basically the engineer on retainer. So there was, it was a different,
Different scenario.
different scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So, I think I shall tell the mayor that we
We'll have some.
agree, and we are working on it, and we will have something.
I would say, what I'd like to do then is, come up with something, we'll send it to you, and then you can circulate it to the board, and maybe it's something we'll have ready for the next meeting
Okay,
for a recommendation.
okay,
And it's timely,
yes,
like,
yeah.
we need
absolutely.
to collect some fees on this.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
I'm cheap, though, he's expensive.
I know, you get what, $20 an hour is what you're charging an attorney? I get it. Me too. But, okay, thank you. All right, if there is anybody else have anything other? No. Okay, may I have a motion to close the meeting? Okay. Roseanne?
Second.
Andrew, second. You did pretty well at naming names.